Hello, this is Laura and welcome to the Learning Reading Hub. Why is it that so many beginner readers struggle to read very simple, very short, very regular words? Words like mad, cat, said or some? Well, the most common reason is that they have problems blending. And you might be wondering now, okay, but what is blending? Blending is the process where you take all the individual sounds in a word and push them together to smoothly and effortlessly read a word. In this video, I'm going to share with you 10 strategies that you can implement if your child or a student has problems blending sounds. And make sure, by the way, to stick around for strategies number 3 and number 5 at least, because they are really effective and not so well known. And now, without further ado, let's get started. Strategy number 1. Warm up to the sounds. As mentioned before, I'm assuming that you're working with a child that already knows his or her letter sounds. However, it might be that automatic reflex that you need to develop to actually say the sound of the letter straight away without any type of hesitation, without thinking about it, not even for a fraction of a second, still isn't 100% there. So, with these readers, it is a very good idea to warm up to the sounds in the words that they are about to read. So, say the child is going to read these words: some, sat, map. Write down the letters in these words on a whiteboard or take your alphabet cards and go over the sounds of these letters first. We want these children have these sounds really fresh in their minds. Then you present those words with those sounds to them and ask them to read the words out loud. This simple review before reading technique can be very helpful for these students that, as I said before, know their sounds but not with the level of automaticity that is required for reading. Strategy number 2. Make sure they are reading simple VC and CVC words. VC words are formed by a vowel followed by a consonant, so the total number of letters is 2. CVC words are formed by a consonant plus a vowel plus a consonant, so the total number of letters is 3. Don't go over this number of letters with beginner readers. In fact, if the child struggles with CVC words, try VC words first. Sometimes we skip these words because there are so many and because they don't really hold a lot of meaning. They are normally prepositions and conjunctions and things like that, so we tend to think that they are not fun words for kids to read. But still, they can be great practice for children that are struggling to link sounds. Linking two sounds, pushing two sounds together is so much easier than attaching 3 sounds together. These are some examples of VC words that you can use. Strategy number 3. Try continuous blending. There are 2 different types of blending: smooth or continuous blending, and broken or choppy blending. The most common type of blending that is taught to children is choppy blending. Choppy blending is when the sounds of a word are sounded out individually without connection. For example, with the word map, when we're doing choppy blending, we sound it like this: m, a, p. Between each of the sounds in the word map, there is a short pause, which will lead to a choppy blend. With broken or choppy blending, we are not making a connection between each of the sounds. This can actually present problems for some children that are not able to figure out that there's an actual connection between the sounds. In fact, there are many strategies out there trying to solve this problem. I'm sure you've heard of some, like moving your arms at the same time you're sounding out each individual sound, etc. And while all of this is well and good, it's still not enough for many children. The thing is that some children who have blending difficulties may know the letter sounds perfectly, but then when they are choppy blending, they just can't figure things out. This is because it's very difficult for them to grasp that there is an actual connection that needs to happen among all of these sounds. They hear a brief pause and they think they are isolated sounds, not a word. And this is when smooth blending comes in. Smooth blending is quite the opposite of choppy blending. You sound out the words in a way that all the sounds are smoothly connected to say the actual word that you are reading. It's actually all about stretching the sounds. So let's compare. Example of choppy blending. P. Example of a smooth blending. Map. I'm sure you can hear the difference, right? So, since grasping the concept of making a connection among the individual sounds with choppy blending can be hard for many kids, you may want to work on a mix of choppy blending and smooth blending. And I would say focus a lot more on smooth blending. Bear in mind, however, that there are some letter sounds that cannot be stretched out. If you do try to stretch them out, you end up altering them, distorting their sounds. Some of these sounds are b, k, d, g, j, t, p. They are referred to as stop sounds. They simply make you stop, so do not try to stretch up these sounds. Simply connect them as smoothly as possible to the next sound. Hey, are you enjoying this video so far? Then you're going to love our book, How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch Step by Step. Find out how to get your free copy on the video description. And now, let's continue with the video. Strategy number 4. Pick words that begin with continuous sounds. This strategy goes hand in hand with the previous one. When starting out, for many children, it's so much simpler to read words that start with continuous sounds because it is so much easier as well to use our previous strategy. Remember, a smooth or continuous blending. So be strategic and pick words that begin with a continuous sound. Since I'm assuming that you're going to be using CBC words, the second sound is also going to be a continuous sound, since all vowels are continuous sounds. So this is going to make your child's job way easier. Some examples of words that you can use are mat, set, fit. By the way, if you want a cheat list of continuous and stop sounds, check the video description. I will leave you a link to a downloadable with this information. Strategy number 5. Read a maximum of 2 letters at a time. This strategy goes a little bit in line with strategy number 2, which was all about starting with 2-letter words instead of 3-letter words. So how to go about this strategy, which by the way has different names. One of the most popular ones is successive blending. Okay, this is how we go about it. We cover the last 2 sounds in the word and ask our child to say the first. In this case, we uncover the next letter and ask our child to say the sound and immediately blend those 2 sounds. A, ma. We then uncover the 3rd letter and we ask our child to say the last sound, t, and immediately blend that last sound with the first 2 blending sounds, ma, mat. So who's this strategy good for? It's especially good for children that when they get to the last sound of a word, they have forgotten all about the first one. Sounds familiar? It happens a lot. Children are putting a lot of mental effort onto this, and the first sound occurred for them like an eternity ago, so they just can't remember that first sound when they get to the last one. Another way to go about this successive blending strategy is to present words like this. A, ma, mat, mat. You can see we're really going little by little here, making sure we're not forgetting that first sound and making sure we're blending and pushing those sounds together incrementally. Strategy number 6, use special flashcards. These flashcards have special symbols to represent the number of sounds in the targeted word and an arrow to remind us of the direction in which reading happens. You can just use simple dots like this to represent the sounds. Nothing fancy, nothing extravagant. The dots are there for your child to touch them as he or she says the sounds, and then get your child to move his or her index finger along as he or she pushes the sounds together to read the word. If you want to make this more tactile, more sophisticated, because maybe you've got a kinetic learner, you can use manipulatives instead of dots. Maybe you can use counters or Play-Doh balls. You can also do this with a whiteboard using magnets, for instance. You can totally play with this concept to adjust it to your child's learning style. Strategy number 7. Avoid cognitive overload. Well, most of the strategies that I've shared have already taken this into consideration, but I would go a step further and say, if your child has problems blending simple CVC words, be careful with the introduction of irregular, high-frequency words. Maybe just forget about them until he or she has mastered blending regular CVC words. We first need to get to that milestone. Why? Well, we may need to use other strategies to read these words successfully. Imagine how confusing this can be for your child and how easily it can end up in cognitive overload. Once your child has mastered blending CVC words, we can start to introduce them slowly, being very strategic with the order that we follow and how we group them together with the number of sight words that we introduce at a time. Remember, cognitive overload. Anyway, I don't want to go off topic. If you want to understand more about this specific topic, watch this other video. I will also leave you a link on the video description. Strategy number 8. Introduce movement. I'll show you with examples. Number 1, stretching hands technique. At, mat. Number 2, shoulder, elbow, wrist technique. At, mat. Number 3, pointer, middle, ring finger technique. At, mat. Or you can also do it with your thumb. At, mat. Strategy number 9. Read and pick the right word. Maybe resort to this one after trying the other strategies. If your child is still struggling, create worksheets like this one. The target word is mug. You ask your child to read the word and pick the right image. Notice how all of these words, mat, moon, mug, man, start with the sound, so your child cannot guess based on the first sound in this word. That is very important. Strategy number 10. Repetition. The key to master blending is repetition. Some children need more repeated practice than others, but they all need some degree of repetition and continuous exposure to words and reading. Children are not born with an innate ability to read words, and as with everything in life, we only become masters at something once we've practiced enough times. Remember, humans are not wired for learning to read as we are wired for learning to speak. So do not despair, practice and repeat until your child develops automaticity in decoding and word recognition.